We are. It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. Welcome to my takeout, my Emil Amok's takeout. Some people like to call it a takeaway. This is a takeout. Eat here, take out, whatever you like. You found us, the secret radio show, podcast, more radio show than podcast. I think it is more radio show than podcast. We put it out there Monday through Friday. We try either live or recorded, 2 p.m. Pacific. What a day, right? I mean, could you believe your eyes when you saw the headlines shoot out? Martial law. Where? The United States. Oh, precursor, maybe. I don't know. But you have martial law being declared in South Korea. This is the wild thing. Declared in South Korea, and then the parliament gets a vote on it. That's not martial law. That's like some weak sauce. You know, that's weak sauce martial law. I mean, here's the thing. If it's strongman democracy or strongman government, right, in action, you don't declare martial law and then have the parliament come in and give them the opportunity to say, oh, no, not in a democracy. So I don't know what was going on there in South Korea, but the news is it shows what chaos is in the world right now. You got a lot of amateurs, a lot of people who shouldn't be in office, right? And they freak out when this guy in Korea was like, he had lower approval ratings than Biden. I mean, that's how bad he was. So he had low approval ratings, trying to figure out what was going on. It's just chaos there, right? Yoon Suk Yeol, South Korean president, imposed martial law. And if you impose martial law, you're saying, hey, I'm coming in like a strong man. I got my guys behind me, and we're taking over. But to show how weak he was, Yoon Suk Yeol, the South Korean president, we might as well say his name. Everyone's sort of been like just going over the Yoon Suk Yeol. It's President Yoon. But like 6 hours later, the National Assembly passed a resolution condemning the move. So there's protests, a constitutional crisis. This is one of the United States' closest allies. They're a leading democracy in Asia. You know, Japan, Philippines. Those are the Philippines, by the way, the first Asian democracy. And so people see this happening from around the world, and they're scratching their heads saying, well, what's going on here? This is world politics. This is global politics. And you have Yoon. He said in a surprise broadcast that martial law was necessary to defend South Korea from pro-North Korean elements and to safeguard the constitutional order, which is what you usually use to justify such a move. But he's so unpopular, he couldn't enforce it. I mean, the parliament voted against him. Now, here's sort of the outline. Yoon cited the center-left Democratic Party. He said steps by that center-left Democratic Party to take over the budget process and to impeach members of the government, of his government, that made him do it. And of course, Yoon, who has been a buddy of the U.S., an ally, did not notify the U.S. ahead of time. No one knew what was going on. We got demonstrations outside. When it happened, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning in Seoul. And no one knew what was going on. And then you have, and just to show you what a weakling Yoon was, the leader of Yoon's party condemned his actions. Not to mention that the National Assembly, the parliament, controlled by the Democratic Party, the opposing party, quickly voted to end martial law. So, like I said, this is what happens when you have amateurs running government. You have some guy says, well, I'm going to use the strongman action. And he's not that strong. He's weak. So Korea is in some chaos now. And everyone around the world, I mean, we know what Donald Trump has up his sleeve. What's Donald Trump thinking? Well, I guess if I'm going to be strong, I got to be strong. I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking that you don't do something like declare martial law if you're not ready to like go to the mat, right? And South Korean President Yoon was not. What's interesting is you see in America, here in the U.S., we have all these unqualified people who are being nominated to lead the government. One imagines what would have happened if they were in charge. I don't, you know, I'm sure they'd wonder, well, they'd probably call up Trump and say, hey, Don, can't you just call up your buddy Kim Jong-un? Ask him what's going on down there. I mean, this is the importance of having people who know what they're doing in the right places when you have a crisis like this that just comes out of the blue. And now, can you imagine Pete Hegseth being in charge of the Department of Defense? Well, we'd have Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, and no one's making fun of him. But what kind of cables would be crossed or revealed if Tulsi Gabbard was head of national intelligence? I don't know, that you got to take these hearings that are happening here in the United States seriously, because they're only happening the way they are because there's only one thing important, and that is how can a guy who's eminently unqualified to be anything in government, let alone the president of the United States, how can he command such power? How can he be elected? And who can he appoint as his underlings, but people who are worse than he is, or certainly not as good as he is, and certainly people who have something in the background that they want to protect. And when we're finding that out about Pete Hegseth, you see that in the New Yorker. Jay Mayer, who is a great reporter, got to looking into Pete Hegseth's background. And we'll read a little from that New Yorker article a little later in the show, but because there's no question that Pete Hegseth is unqualified and shouldn't be there. And, there's only one reason why he's kept afloat, why he's still propped up. Well, number one, he's a Trump favorite. Number two, he's a white male. If he were any other color, come on, if he were any other color, black, brown, Asian, and they found that kind of stuff on him, and that was revealed in some kind of, report, he would be seriously, he would be urged to withdraw and not embarrass President Trump. But how can you embarrass President Trump when he is a convicted felon? He is worse than, well, the bar is low. If you think Hegseth's bad, well, Trump's pretty bad too, and he's president. Oh, okay, I guess we got to accept Hegseth. Gates was beyond the pale, as they say. But Hegseth, they're still playing around with him. But I think he too will be beyond the pale. Tulsi Gabbard, same thing. But all these other lesser lights, I don't know if Pam Bondi, the person who's replacing Gates, I don't know if she's clean in terms of her background. Certainly, we don't know. I don't know if there are any FBI background checks, But Pam Bondi probably will sail through. We don't know anything about her, except she's a loyal Trumpy. So, it's important what happens in these proceedings and what Trump is doing to get all these lesser lights through. But just imagine if there was a crisis and they were in charge, how how would they handle it? I mean, this is the big time. So keep your eye out on the Hegseth hearings that they're happening today. Still, I believe, as we speak, and will continue to happen. I'll read later from the Jane Mayer piece, but it's still not clear what's going on in South Korea, because it's now, as we approach daytime in South Korea, what cooler heads will prevail. I mean, I guess it shows you, hey, if you're going to be a strong man, be a strong man. And you better have the army with you, because, when you start backing down and start letting Parliament vote on whether or not you're going to be the strong man, that is not a strong man. That is not a strong man. So South Korea, we've got to keep our eye out on South Korea. What came out in some of the reporting is that there is a generation of Korean Americans who fled South Korea. And I wasn't really clear on that part of, South Korea, Korean history. I didn't realize that they had martial law in the 80s. I must have. I mean, because, it was on while I was covering local news, but we didn't cover South Korea. And the only reason why I paid attention to the Philippines and martial law in the Philippines at the time is because the U.S. propped up the martial law. And there was a reason why Americans needed to pay attention to the Philippines. I'm not to mention the fact that it was the first colony of the United States, but you had to pay attention to the Philippines because Reagan and Bush and U.S. money and U.S. bases were all there in the Philippines. That was important. And the hypocrisy of supporting Marcos, the dictator, and his martial law, very important. Very important. And now, South Korea, there are troops there. There's U.S. Army, I believe. Tens of thousands of troops there also, because it's all important to have these strategic places to combat China. So that's why everyone is paying attention to what's going on in South Korea, our ally. And like I said, I was just thinking, oh, well, do you think Donald Trump has called up his lover, Kim Jong-un? I mean, that's all it would take. Hey, Kim, how's the fade, baby? Do you think you got any sense, are people trying to overthrow the guy down there in the South? People who like you, your friends, are they trying? The intel, right? And then if Trump has his person there, Tulsi Gabbard, as director of national intelligence, she'd know all of this before, right? She would have known all this before because she's in bed with all these guys, metaphorically. I mean, she's not just a Russian tool, or she's America's tool. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is why you got to be careful with Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, I'm not saying that that's a good thing to be America's tool. I'm saying it as a point of derision. Anyway, this is the world for you in 2024. This is the world in 2024. So we're going to keep an eye peeled on South Korea, because I haven't seen anything from President Biden. Biden was in Angola, and Biden's just happy that there's other things being talked about other than the Biden, the Biden, the pardon of his son Hunter. But what I find interesting about that, and it is interesting, the Hunter Biden stuff, and that is, it wouldn't have been bad if President Biden hadn't spent most of the year saying, that Democrats take the moral high ground on everything, right? It's a version of the Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. So Joe Biden was going high and stayed high and said, yeah, I'm not going to pardon my son. And now it looks like he's backtracking. Well, he is backtracking. And people say, well, I thought you were trying to show the moral high ground and how the Democrats were different from the lying Republicans and Donald Trump and the shattering of the norms and the corruption and the cronyism and the unethical manner in which the Trump administration did business. I mean, they never put money in a blind trust. They made money. The Trumps made money while Donald Trump was was president the first time around. They never said, "Oh, put our money in a blind trust and let's keep things on the up and up." Meanwhile, no, they didn't do that. Meanwhile, people were allowed to stay at the Trump International Hotel, enriching Trump while they did business with the Trump administration. That's just like a very simple matter of conflict of interest. If you're the president, that's the highest level of that example. And that's called corruption. That is called being corrupt. So in a way, it does kind of matter if the Democrats' stand was, hey, we're moral, we're above it. And now they're saying, now there's a simple fix to that, is there is nothing normal. There is nothing normal about giving in to Trump and falling on your sword, especially when Trump has his hand on the handle of your sword. I mean, it's naive, right? I mean, this has always been a criticism of the Democrats. They never knew how to fight hard or tough. And the basic question is, what is the use of using moral high ground as a point of discussion when America just elected a convicted felon? Moral high ground does not compute. Does not compute. Not with the American electorate. Unfortunately, I don't know. I don't know what does. Lower the price of eggs. I mean, that does. So we have, I mean, look, the Hitler factor meant nothing. The moral high ground, you got to find new ways to fight in this realm, because the logic that makes a difference to voters, I think that's a problem that the Democrats have right now. What logic makes sense? The pardon process is the real problem, and everyone does it, and it's all legal, and that's not to excuse the fact that it happened. I mean, that there's some problems with pardons. I guess it boils down to, well, do you believe that this person should be pardoned because of X, right? I mean, if you look at the people who Donald Trump has pardoned, all his cronies, all his Republican friends, all his high staff members, he's pardoned them. I mean, that makes Donald Trump want to talk. Because I think, and this is the point I made initially, it boils down to this. If you had a chance to save your son, and if justice, the landscape of justice, has been albeit we hope temporarily changed. If you had an opportunity to use your constitutional power, your legal constitutional power, to save your son, would you be happy with moral high ground? Or would you say, family matters, I got to save my son? And I think that if we were honest, we don't live in normal moral times. When you're playing a cheat, when you're playing a real liar who doesn't play by the rules, I think you are defeating yourself when you don't accept the fact that you're playing a different game. You're not playing the same game where moral high ground counts. You're playing a totally different game. It's dirty, it's slimy, and if you want to win, you just have to be a little less slimy than the other guy. I mean, that's what it boils down to, right? Just be a little less slimy. Just a little. So it's funny though, because Biden's getting it from both sides. The Republicans hate him for it, and the Democrats are saying, "Oh, we feel betrayed." There's some people who are in the Justice Department who feel betrayed, and they still feel it's an improper use of power. Who knows? Are they playing both sides there to try to save the? I mean, the Democrats are clearly split on this. They're not even united behind Biden. But I say, Joe, this has gone beyond your legacy, and now people will remember you. It's a double standard, and when you're playing a different game, I won't hold it against you. When you pick blood over country, but is it that? Is it really blood over country? No, it's blood over giving in to the liar Trump. Because we're not playing the above a four country game anymore. Donald Trump didn't play the four country game, and I don't think we need. I mean, I think you got to consider the crime too. If you consider the crimes that Hunter Biden was accused of, the form and the tax thing, even though he's paid the tax. I mean, it's little stuff by comparison. Still, they broke the law, but little stuff. And when people want to say, "Hey, look, you're going to pull this on us, Joe. How dare you, Joe?" All you got to say is convicted felon Donald Trump, 34 felonies. And you realize, hey, it's a different game. All right. So we talked about all the stuff here. We talked about martial law, the moral high ground. Martial law, the Philippines was created, their constitution was created, as a mirror of the United States. And they've invoked martial law. I know they've considered it here, or Trump has. Wouldn't be seemly. Wouldn't work. Well, I mean, would the generals be behind him? I mean, I think that's one of the things about what's happening in South Korea. The South Korean president had like low approval ratings in the 20s. Would he dare Oh, he did. He did dare to do martial law. But you see, the people that flocked behind him say, "Go, go, President Yoon, President Yoon." No, they didn't do that. They said, "Well, I guess he's not that strong. Guess he's not that strong." But martial law, I'm amazed that there was no general who said, or no, you know, member of the police or whatever the law enforcement. There was nothing, or there was no one in that wing who was supporting Yoon who'd say, "Oh, okay, I'll prop you up there, Yoon." So just shows how unpopular Yoon was. But would Trump manage that? Would Trump try to do that, to replicate that, but succeed because he was stronger? And if you see the kind of people that he's suggesting and the kind of things that have been talked about, like getting a tribunal of generals and kicking out some generals, cleaning up. I mean, this is the importance of all that. This is a lesson for Trump to get your ducks in a row if you're going to try a stunt like President Yoon, because President Yoon, who knows what's next for him? But martial law has failed. I think maybe it either emboldens Trump more to make sure that all his people get passed. But Gates was the beginning where people sort of came to their senses. Hegseth, if Hegseth goes down, that'll be another one. I mean, Trump has to marshal, pun intended, his political capital and the goodwill that people want to extend to him so that he will extend goodwill and reciprocate to them. But I think he's a couple of bad moves away from really showing he's not as powerful as he thinks. I mean, that's the lesson from Yoon. Well, Yoon started out not being very popular. Yoon in Korea, trying to pull martial law, trying to pull the strong man, flexing his muscles, and then people kick sand in his face. Donald Trump, got to know if he's going to pull that kind of stunt, he's got to go all the way, and I don't know if he's that strong. Right now, the Congress defers to Trump to such a degree. But the Gates matter, and if Hegseth goes down, I think people see, hey, why are we just pledging allegiance to Trump? That's the real problem, right? Because the Congress needs to, they're there at the pleasure of the people. They got it wrong if they're putting Trump first over country. It's country and the people over Trump. And if more Republicans see that as they say no to Hegseth, as they say no to Tulsi Gabbard, maybe by the time Trump gets in office, the power that he thought he has won't be as significant as he thought. That's the hope, because something needs to balance out. All right, the Hegseth that I got to this late yesterday, but I finally read it. It's interesting. Pete Hegseth's secret history. A whistleblower report and other documents suggest that Trump's nominee to run the Pentagon was forced out of previous leadership positions for financial mismanagement, sexist behavior, and being repeatedly intoxicated on the job. I said this. If you or I had this on our resume and we were applying for any job, manager of the local Sonic, maybe chief dog catcher in your area. If they found something like that, do you think you'd be considered? Of course not. But Pete Hegseth, he's playing it out. You know that if Pete Hegseth were black, African American, Latino, Asian, any other kind of, if he wasn't white and a Trump favorite, it wouldn't even gotten as far as it has now. But I don't know. We got Kash Patel to look forward to. How far do you go for Kash Patel? He's only saying, I mean, the reports for Kash Patel is that he's saying stuff that, people know. It's been reported. I didn't know about the children's book, though, about, protecting King Donald. I didn't know about that. Shows a little creativity, which means when doing things in secret, he would be very creative in bending the law to suit Donald Trump. Anyway, Jane Mayer's article on Hegseth. I want to read a little bit of it. There's there's a couple of Asian Americans. There's Trump's communications director, Stephen Chung. He's in it. And also the head of the Veterans Agency that Pete Hegseth was a part of, the nonprofit, Asian guy there too, no longer there. So here's the first graph. The headline was a grabber, but the first graph too. After the recent revelation that Pete Hegseth had secretly paid a financial settlement to a woman who had accused him of raping her in 2017, President-elect Donald Trump stood by his choice of Hegseth to become the next Secretary of Defense. The guy is impregnable. He's the guy, right? Hegseth is the guy. Donald Trump's standing by his man. Trump's communication director, Stephen Chung, issued a statement noting that Hegseth, who has denied wrongdoing, has not been charged with any crime. You got to be charged with a crime? So anything short of a crime is okay. It could be questionable. It could be sexist and racist, but not a crime. If it's a crime, oh, yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Donald Trump has been convicted of 34 crimes. Maybe it doesn't even matter if it was a crime. I mean, that's the stupid logic of Stephen Chung. President Trump is nominating high caliber and extremely qualified candidates to serve in his administration, Chung maintained. Oh, yeah. Pete Hegseth is a white affirmative action hire. He's a white DEI hire. Let's just call it what it is. Kash Patel, same thing. Second graph, Meyer article. But Hegseth's record before becoming a full-time Fox News TV host in 2017 raises additional questions about his suitability to run the world's largest and most lethal military force. A trail of documents corroborated by the accounts of former colleagues indicates that Hegseth was forced to step down by both of the two nonprofit advocacy groups that he ran, Veterans for Freedom and Concerned Veterans for America, in the face of serious allegations of financial mismanagement, sexual impropriety, and personal misconduct. That's a lot there. Second graph. That's a lot of stuff. Third graph. A previously undisclosed whistleblower report, whistleblowers, thank God for whistleblowers. A report on Hegseth's tenure as the president of Concerned Veterans for America from 2013 until 2016 describes him as being repeatedly intoxicated while acting in his official capacity to the point of needing to be carried out of the organization's events. It's not like being hoisted up on the shoulders of your fans to cheers. No, he's drunk. He's drunk, carried out, blackout drunk. The detailed 7-page report, which was compiled by multiple former CVA, Concerned Veterans for America employees, and sent to the organization's senior management in February 2015, states that at one point, Hegseth had to be restrained while drunk from joining the dancers on the stage of a Louisiana strip club where he had brought his team. Conducting business at a strip club, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong. In fact, it shows that this man knows that you don't just stop at Hooters, you go to a real strip club. You can't. Hooters, what? You're going there for the food? No, you go to a strip club. That's where you conduct business. The report also says that Hegseth, who was married at the time, casting some shade there, and other members of his management team sexually pursued the organization's female staffers, whom they divided into two groups: the party girls and the not party girls. That sounds like discrimination to me. And if I was a not party girl, I would be upset. In addition, the report asserts that under Hegseth's leadership, the organization became a hostile workplace that ignored serious accusations of impropriety, including an allegation made by a female employee that another employee on Hegseth's staff had attempted to sexually assault her at the Louisiana strip club. Oh, it just gets better. In a separate letter of complaint, which was sent to the organization in late 2015, a different former employee described Hegseth being at a bar in the early morning hours of May 29th, 2015. Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. While on an official tour through Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, drunkenly chanting, "Kill all Muslims, kill all Muslims." Wow. And during AAPI Heritage Month. What a bum. In response to questions from this magazine, The New Yorker, Tim Parlatore, a lawyer for Hegseth, replied with the following statement, which he said came from, quote, an advisor to Hegseth. Quote, "We're not going to comment on outlandish claims laundered through The New Yorker by a petty and jealous, disgruntled former associate of Mr. Hegseth's. Get back to us when you try your first attempt at actual journalism." Oh my God. A simple no comment would be fine, Tim Parlatore. But I guess you've been on cable news so much, you got a little confident there. Get back to us when you try your first attempt at actual This is actual journalism. Unfortunately, it's not one of those other silos where they just put out the news. They actually get the other side. They report on Hegseth, and they got to get Hegseth to respond. You're the lawyer, and the best you could do is, we're not going to comment on outlandish claims. Get back to us when you try your first attempt at actual journalism. All right, so I'm 1, 2, 3, 4 graphs in. And this is a longish piece. 4 graphs in already, I'm saying Pete Hegseth. Does the American public want Pete Hegseth? Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat from Connecticut and a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, described the report of Hegseth's drinking as alarming and disqualifying. In a phone interview, Blumenthal, who currently leads the Senate committee that will review Hegseth's nomination, told me, Jane Mayer, quote, "Much as we might be sympathetic to people with continuing alcohol problems, they shouldn't be at the top of our national security structure." Blumenthal went on, "It's dangerous. The Secretary of Defense is involved in every issue of national security. He's involved in the use of nuclear weapons. He's the one who approved sending troops into combat." Imagine that. Nuclear weapons, and you have a drunken fool like Pete Hegseth involved in whether to use them. Send troops into combat? Hey, Pete Hegseth said no to Hooters and went straight to the Louisiana strip club. He's not afraid to mix it up. Blumenthal says the Secretary of Defense approves drone strikes. that may involve civilian casualties. Hegseth knows how to separate the men from the boys and your civilian casualties from collateral damage. I mean, he knew. Party girls, non-party girls. The guy discriminates well. Literally, life and death issues are in the hands of the Secretary of Defense, and entrusting these kinds of issues to someone who might be incapacitated for any reason is a risk we cannot take. Wow, now this is something, because it indicates we can say we got a problem. Hello, Secretary of Defense's office. We need to make a decision on whether to use a nuke. Is the Secretary in? He's indisposed now. What do you mean he's indisposed? We need him now. Well, I can't say he's incapacitated, but he has been, shall we say, he's been thirsty today. Well, we need get that guy up. We need to make a decision. God. Can you imagine? I mean, this is Blumenthal saying, entrusting these kind of issues to someone who might be incapacitated for any reason is a risk we cannot take. And there he is. He's up on Capitol Hill. He's trying to shoehorn his way in there. Hey, I'm the Fox News host. People like me. They liked me at that strip club. But Blumenthal, Senator Blumenthal, he knows you can't have someone like Pete Hegseth running the Department of Defense. Anyway, the long article, and there was one Asian American whistleblower sent to the president of the group, the veterans group, CVA, Jay Park. An email was sent under a pseudonym by one of the whistleblowers, including a copy of the report, and went on to say, among the staff, the disgust for Pete was pretty high. Most veterans do not think he represents them, nor their high standard of excellence. The email also stated that Hegseth had a history of alcohol abuse and had treated the organization funds like they were a personal expense account for partying, drinking, and using CVA events as little more than opportunities to hook up with women on the road. So, hook up with women on the road. I don't know. I read most of just the general stuff. You're going to have to get the New Yorker yourself. It's a great article. Jane Meyer, good reporter throughout the years. And she got the sources, and I heard on reports last night, more people read this report and said, is that all you got? I got more. I can tell you more. Yeah, I think we know. Pete Hegseth, if he's not toast yet, he should be toast. He should be toast. But there's a lot of people who want to defer to Trump and let Trump do what he wants, which I think is wrong because it shows weakness on the part of the Republican Party. Well, let's just put it this way. If the Republicans are showing weakness because they defer to a convicted criminal, I say all this stuff about Joe Biden betraying America and America's trust by pardoning his son. I think all this negative stuff about Biden, you can just throw that out the window. We're not in the moral landscape. We are in the political hell that Donald Trump has forced us to play in. And if you're going to play moral high ground in hell, you're going to lose to the devil. Joe Biden, I think, is perfectly justified. Well, it's legal for him to make the pardon. And you look at the pardons that Donald Trump did during his first term. I mean, every one of the pardons that I've seen that Donald Trump handed out. I think he pardoned Joe Arpaio. Every one. Political favor. It's disgusting. It wasn't because, I mean, look, here's why you pardon someone. You pardon someone because new DNA test shows they're innocent. Pardon, expunge, do whatever you need because the justice system got it wrong. That's why you pardon. Or you might pardon to show extreme mercy when someone is about to die or something like that. But Joe Biden, when you're in a Washington, like the one we're about to enter, which already is showing great Trumpiness because Trump is preparing his bed, the bed in which he wants to lay, and you already sense that it's a different game. And Democrats just have to get smart to that. And it's not clear if they're going to be able to pull it together. We could talk more post-mortem about why the Democrats lost. I saw a news story today that said that the second most access Wikipedia page was Kamala Harris. I know I looked it up a couple of times. When you have like millions of people looking it up, she's the second most. Emil Guillermo was not in the top 5. Although if you did look up the Emil Guillermo Wikipedia page, I mean, needs updating. The number one page was death, which surprised me. Death was number 1. I don't know. I went to the page. You can Wikipedia it, Google it. I mean, nothing special. People want to be profound about death. I don't know. I don't get it. Donald Trump was in the top 5, but did not beat out Kamala Harris. So by Wikipedia mentions or Wikipedia accesses, Kamala Harris is president of the United States. I know it's a little consolation, but you got to spread the joy when you can. You know what I mean? All right, so we covered just about everything. Hegseth, let's hope he's gone by the end of the week. Maybe he comes to his senses and says, you know, I've got no business heading up the Department of Defense. Instead, I got another offer to run a string of strip clubs in Louisiana and Texas, and I think that is really more my calling. I think that's what I'm going to do. It's my expertise, my speed. God bless America. God bless the vets. I mean, I'm sort of writing his resignation or his withdrawal letter for him, you know, in case he needs help. But I mean, he could say that. Say, I'd love to be the head of the Department of Defense, the defense secretary, but this string of strip clubs throughout the Southwest, including Florida, and I love Florida. I'll be close to you, Donald. This is a step above Hooters. It is a strip club. I think that's where my talents lie. Lie, keyword there. Pete Hegseth. That would be a withdrawal speech or, you know, something you can read. And if you say, well, Emil, he went to Harvard. No, he did not go to Harvard. I mean, you know, he got an MPP, Masters of Public Policy. Oh, yeah. That prepares him to run the Department of Defense. I think it was an undergrad at Princeton or something, but Yeah, Pete Hegseth. He likes to use the Harvard thing because Harvard trumps whatever. And so he likes to use, but he definitely is acting as loutish as some Ivy League grads I know. That's for sure. All right, that's it. That's it. Check out my columns on substack.com/@Emil Amok. Also on patreon.com patreon.com/Emil Amok. And on youtube.com. You got to use the @ sometimes, and sometimes just a slash. @Emil Amok 1 on YouTube. On Patreon, I got to put up a laughter yoga thing, intentional laugh, because it works. Intentional laughter works. It does. It just does. It does. I feel good when I intentionally laugh versus when I try and tell a joke and it falls flat, and then you got to, and then people are saying, but if we just all laugh. You feel good. You feel good from the belly up. I know this because I'm a laughter yogi. Madan Kataria taught. He's in Bombay. Certified laughter yogi. Get those endorphins going. Makes a difference. Intentionally laughing. Silent, intentional laughing. Because then it just sort of explodes in your head, right? Oh, okay. Hey, back tomorrow, Wednesday. We like to close with a little meditation. Loving kindness. Loving kindness. Oh, by the way, you can check on YouTube all the Emil Amok takeouts of the past. This is 801. It's hard to believe we've done 801 of these. But, I guess I have. Loving kindness. We throw it out there. And the more we throw out, it boomerangs, it comes back. Sharon Salzberg. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal Gita.